Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for the 1st of October, 2025. And in today's tropical weather outlook, I'm going to go over the latest on Hurricane Imelda, which is aiming straight for Bermuda, likely going to bring impacts there tonight and into tomorrow morning. But I'm also going to go over what else to look at in the tropics as we are now progressing into the month of October, as it looks like more is likely to come here in the Atlantic Basin in the next week to 10 days after we deal with Imelda here. But obviously, I do want to start off with Imelda since that is the main activity that is happening right now. And you can see not the most organized hurricane, but it is a hurricane nonetheless. It's a Category 2 hurricane. I'll go over the intensity from the National Hurricane Center in a little bit. But this is moving very quickly right now on off to the north, east-northeast, and this will be making a direct beeline for Bermuda tonight and into tomorrow with hurricane force winds, rainfall, probably some storm surge. Now, the good news is that this will obviously be moving pretty quickly, so you're not going to have extreme flooding and the rainfall from a storm just stalling over or moving very slowly, but obviously this will be a hurricane nonetheless. And the latest intensity from Imelda, it is 100 miles per hour, so it is a Category 2. Still might have a chance of strengthening a little bit, although, as I showed you here with the satellite, you can see in recent frames, it does try to get some sort of eye formation going, but recent frames, it kind of looks a little bit ragged. So might strengthen a little bit more, or it might as well just hold at Category 2 intensity. But it is a Category 2 right now. 100 mile per hour winds, 966 millibar pressure, located on the map at 31.2 north and 69.2 west, moving east-northeast at 20 miles per hour. And then Hurricane Humberto here, or no longer hurricane intensity, but formerly Hurricane Humberto, became a remnant low this morning. And we won't have to worry about this storm anymore, although it might have an amplifying effect on Imelda. But that might especially happen as this crosses and gets beyond Bermuda here. But regardless, keep in mind of the hurricane force conditions here that we will have. And obviously, because of that, we do have a hurricane warning in effect for Bermuda right now. Although beyond Bermuda, this is probably very likely to quickly turn a post-tropical system. And then it's going to do some sort of weird thing where the energy from Humberto here is going to kind of pivot inward and get sucked up by the energy of Imelda. And I'll be interested to see what kind of impact that has here, if that's going to happen as Imelda kind of crosses over Bermuda here. But I think it's especially going to happen once it gets past Bermuda and turns a post-tropical system. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch, especially on the satellite. But regardless, for Bermuda, hurricane force winds expected. And tropical storm force winds are probably about to begin soon. I mean, this advisory was as of 2 p.m. Eastern time, so I'd imagine the hurricane force wind field or the tropical storm force wind field, which you see here, is probably now very, very close, if not already beginning to emerge or take over Bermuda. That's the best way I can put it, but you get what I mean. We're probably already starting to see near tropical storm conditions arrive on the island of Bermuda, and obviously they're going to last for the rest of tonight into early tomorrow. And as I'll show you here on the satellite imagery, not satellite imagery, this is the satellite imagery. As I'll show you here on the models, you see what happens is Imelda moves off to the east-northeast and makes a direct beeline for Bermuda. And then we have the energy here just to the north. This is associated with Humberto, kind of just completely disintegrate and then eventually kind of emerge itself or kind of allow itself to be vacuumed into the energy of Imelda. Although you can kind of see here with Imelda seemingly does kind of turn post-tropical as it moves on off to the east away from Bermuda. And one way I know is because you see the string of vorticity here that connects to Imelda. That's probably a signature of a front. So Imelda becomes frontal, obviously no longer a tropical system if that happens. But then eventually, because of that, it then moves on off to the east northeast. And then obviously we won't be dealing with much of the way of impacts from Imelda anymore, especially for Bermuda. It's going to pass by really quickly, so I guess that is one good piece of news for those, especially in the island. Again, tropical storm force winds probably already beginning right now, but it moves on off pretty quickly here already by tomorrow afternoon. Pretty far off to the southeast, away from the island of Bermuda here on the GFS, and then it obviously gets kicked on off to the northeast, and at least for us here in the Western Atlantic and generally in the Atlantic overall, pretty much we won't have to worry about any land impacts after that. Maybe this will probably bring impacts to Europe down the line, but not in our general realm of concern, at least. And then some interesting thing here kind of happens off the East Coast. Looks like some sort of piece of energy probably left over from the frontal system and the general troughiness that we have here. I guess kind of gets left behind, and then something tries to spin up here off the east, off of the coast of Florida and the Bahamas. So maybe that might get a marking from the National Hurricane Center very soon. And then there's generally some sort of piece of energy here in the Gulf, and I'd assume that regardless of whatever happens here, regardless of whatever development happens, there probably will be lots of rainfall for Florida and generally across the South. And that rainfall, is a nuisance no matter if we have tropical development or not. And then just really quickly want to take you here till the end of the run, or at least until the end of where I'm going to show you, and that is at hour 168, so 7 days out. And you see here, not much else that is very potent, except there is a piece of energy here that is in the Western MDR approaching the Caribbean. And I say that because this is something that we're going to have to watch here over the next week in the Atlantic. I think I showed you the European ensembles yesterday. There is generally a signal for development here in the Western Atlantic, especially near the Western MDR and the Caribbean. And I now want to pivot to climatology for this hurricane season, because kind of my segue. I want to show you where we're going to have development versus what development we typically look at as we are now heading into the month of October. And first of all, I want to show you climatology of how typically active things are right now. And on the first month of October, or the first day of October, things are still pretty active. We are roughly right here, somewhere right here, I believe, on the chart for hurricane season. So still decently active, although we are now on the backside of the, campfire, or at least that's what this graphic is called here, the campfire. So we're now on the backside. We're on the declining side of climatology for the hurricane season, meaning from here on out, progressively, the hurricane season is going to start getting less and less active. And obviously that happens all the way till late November, when the hurricane season officially ends on November 30th. But you do notice here that even in the month of October, as things get less active, we still have these kind of peaks, if you will, of certain times where we kind of increase in activity a little bit. So October is still generally a part of the peak of the hurricane season. And during that general peak in October, you can even see it here on the graphic, October 1st through 10th here in the MDR, in the Caribbean, in the Gulf, and across the Southeast. Not that different from most of September, where we are still watching the Atlantic as a whole, although I guess I could point out to you that there's a little bit less density here in the MDR and a little bit more density increasing here in the Western Caribbean, because very much like the early part of the hurricane season, we look a lot more closely towards the Caribbean, especially the Western Caribbean, and in general the Western Atlantic for development as a whole, rather than the MDR, like we do during the very peak of the hurricane season, although I've kind of mentioned a little bit over the last several weeks why I think that is kind of changing over the last several years, especially as the peak of the hurricane season seems to be occurring later and later. That especially last year, I could point to storms like Hurricane Kirk and I think even Leslie. Both happened in early October in Kirk. If you remember, if you're a tracker, if you're a fanatical tracker of the tropics like I am, was a major hurricane in the MDR, and that happened in early October. So it's not like the MDR completely shuts down and is closed for business, and we only look towards the Caribbean, at least in the first 10 days of October. But, this is generally where we start looking a lot more closely. And I mention that because, coincidentally, if you look at the global tropical hazards for the next several weeks here as we progress into the month of October, where are the exact areas highlighted? It's the Caribbean, and also an area here, at least in week 2, which is next week pretty much. We have the Western Atlantic highlighted, and obviously I showed you with a snippet here on the GFS of some interesting thing here beginning to show up as near the Caribbean in the Western MDR as we head into next week. So that is highlighted here. But also week 2, large portions of the southwestern Gulf and even the Western Caribbean, and especially week 3, probably going to see here a Central American gyre setup begin to occur as MJO comes back into the MDR and into the Atlantic and the Western Hemisphere as a whole. And that lines up pretty much with what I've been saying, that as we head into the month of October, we start looking more at a more concentrated lens in the Caribbean and Gulf once again. And just to close it off, here's the velocity potential chart from the European that I like to show from time to time. And notice here where we do see a cell of rising motion as once again the MJO is going to come back here into the Atlantic. Where does that happen? Roughly around the 2nd to 3rd week of October, especially starting around October 8th. You see here a rising cell of greens here, so rising motion in the atmosphere. And where does that happen? In the Western Hemisphere. So probably a Central American gyre setup occurring and occurring in the Caribbean, and we know how that goes again, especially as we head into the month of October. And sometimes we have our most potent storms in the Caribbean in the month of October, especially if you remember back from Hurricane Wilma in 2005. That was a very potent storm, the strongest hurricane on record, and that happened in the month of October in the Caribbean. So do not let your guard down yet, even though we are now beginning to progress into the late season of the hurricane season, and obviously things are going to progressively get slightly less active from here on out till the end on November 30th. Again, I'm just saying, keep your eye out, and especially here over the next several weeks, looks like we're going to have things to watch in terms of potential development, and we're probably going to get a few more named storms in the very least from this month alone. Would not even be surprised if we have slightly more activity this month than we had last month in September, especially given that for half of the month in September we were unusually quiet. But then obviously, as we got towards the latter portion of the month, things woke up. We had 3 hurricanes, 2 of them majors, and obviously with our 3rd hurricane of the last several weeks being Imelda here, which will bring impacts to Bermuda, and obviously we're going to continue to watch that very closely. But once again, good news for Bermuda. This is going to be a quick event. It's going to happen tonight, and then it'll probably be already mostly over by late tomorrow morning. So just batten down the hatches and be bunkered in at least just for tonight, and then it'll be over tomorrow. But with that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. Obviously, I'm going to be having more updates throughout Twitter tonight and into tomorrow with Bermuda. So please make sure to follow me on Twitter, or X as it's now called. It's been I think even 3 years at this point that the name change has officially gone to X, and I still really can't call it X. I still call it Twitter, but whatever. But enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. And I'll be back with more, as always, tomorrow.